Hi, welcome to our channel where we share the most intriguing stories. At 6 a.m., a phone rings. A man answers half asleep, and in that moment, his quiet, off-grid life shatters. By nightfall, there's a stolen truck, a forged land deed, and an attempted arson. One man, one axe, and a war against a corrupt HOA that never saw him coming. I don't usually answer unknown numbers, especially not on weekends. Especially not at 6 in the goddamn morning. But something about that early morning buzz, sharp, insistent, unnatural, made me fumble for the phone before the second ring finished. "Michael speaking," I mumbled, still half asleep and groggy. "Michael, hey, Kevin Holt here." Voice like gravel in a blender. "Listen, open your gate. My son's on the way over. He's got a truck full of firewood. Gonna unload it on your back lot." I blinked, sat up. "What?" "You heard me," he said, like we were old pals planning a barbecue. "You've got the space. It's just wood." My brain stalled for a second. "You mean my firewood?" "Come on, Mike. Don't be dramatic. It's a bunch of logs. Community needs a place, and your yard's just sitting there. You live like a damn hermit anyway." "I live on my land," I snapped. "That's my shed and my cedar I spent 2 months splitting and seasoning." There was a pause. I heard someone laughing faintly in the background, probably his useless kid. Then Kevin's tone shifted, sharp, irritated. "They're already en route. Just open the gate. We don't have time to argue." I hung up on him. Outside, the November mist was still clinging to the pines, the kind of thick, bone-cold fog that doesn't lift until noon. I threw on jeans and boots and stepped out onto the porch, still unsure if that call had actually happened or was some weird dream brought on by too much late-night chili. 10 minutes later, the crunch of tires on gravel snapped me back to clarity. A dull gray van, rust on the fenders, exhaust rattling like marbles in a tin can, pulled up just outside my fence. Behind it, an old Chevy pickup, sagging under what looked like an overloaded bed of my damn cedar. 3 guys climbed out. One I recognized, Kevin's idiot son, Chad, or Brad, or whatever waste of oxygen he was named. The other 2 looked like hired muscle from Craigslist. And then I saw it, one of them pulling out a freaking angle grinder. You have got to be kidding me. I didn't even grab a coat. I bolted back into the house and hit the emergency lockdown on my gate system. I'd spent a good chunk of cash on it. Heavy-duty timber and steel, motorized hinges, backup battery, full integration with my alarm and perimeter lights. I hit the panic sequence. Within seconds, the yard lit up like a stadium. Floodlights kicked on, siren blared, and the gates slammed shut, bolts locking with a satisfying hydraulic clunk. Inside the post by the gate, one of my camouflaged motion-triggered trail cams started snapping burst photos every 2 seconds. I watched from the porch, arms crossed, barefoot on the cold wood, as the 3 stooges jumped like spooked deer. They started scrambling to get back into the van, but not before I noticed something that made my stomach flip. The bed of the pickup was half full, and not just with any firewood. It was my cedar. My carefully stacked, winter-dried, split-by-hand cedar. I'd built that pile under the shed like a fortress. I had receipts for the chainsaw oil to prove it. I called the sheriff's office right then. Gave them everything. Live camera feed, real-time GPS location, a voice recording of Kevin's call, my phone auto-records by default, and a short, calm description of attempted trespass, property theft, and possible burglary in progress. The deputy on the line didn't even blink. "Stay on your porch, sir. Units are en route." The van tried to pull a clumsy 3-point turn, but the sheriff's car cut them off halfway down the driveway. They weren't going anywhere. I threw on a flannel and walked down as the deputies questioned the 3 of them. Chad tried to play it dumb. My dad said this was HOA land, that it was like, for the community. I raised a brow. "You see a community picnic table out here, jackass. This is 8 acres of deeded private property. You really think I stacked 20 cords of cedar out here for a bake sale?" One of the workers, thin, tired-looking guy with calloused hands, just shook his head. "Look, man, we were paid to move some wood. We didn't know it was stolen." The deputies began taking statements. I handed over my deed. I pulled up my property map. I even showed the sensor logs, time-stamped footage from the security system, GPS tags, still photos. It wasn't just an attempted theft. They were already in the act. And Kevin? That smug bastard hadn't even bothered to show up. The sheriff's office didn't mess around. Within 30 minutes, 2 more units showed up. By then, I'd brewed a pot of coffee, thrown on some real pants, and was standing just inside my front gate, watching the circus unfold with a mug in hand and my middle finger reserved for later. Deputy Caldwell, a wiry guy in his 40s with the look of someone who'd seen his share of meth heads and weekend militia dads, walked up and gave me a nod. "Mr. Grayson, that's me. Looks like a mess." "Looks like a felony," I said, sipping. "Help yourself to evidence. I've got trail cam footage, GPS logs, call recordings, and one van full of my cedar. Don't worry, it's all high res." He cracked a smile. "Mind if I take a look around?" I walked him to the back of the lot. My cedar shed, the one I'd built myself down to every damn joint and beam, had a hole where the stack used to be. A good 5 cords gone. Drag marks in the dirt led straight from the pile to where the truck had pulled in. "You want to tell me again how this is community firewood?" I said, loud enough for the goons to hear. One of the deputies had cuffed Chad. He looked like a scared Labrador, confused, dumb, and trying to figure out who took his chew toy. He kept repeating the same thing. My dad told me it was okay. I'd met HOA people before, clipboard warriors, paint shade enforcers, mailbox measurement enthusiasts, but Kevin Holt was a different breed. He didn't just believe he had power, he believed it was owed to him, which is why, after I handed over the footage and the deputies wrapped up their impound forms, I drove straight to the county land office. I wasn't just mad. I was ready to bury this bastard under every line of code and paper the system had. The office was a beige building with the charm of a DMV and the speed of cold molasses. Inside, I was met by a woman named Linda, who looked like she'd rather be strangling a printer cable than helping me. But when I showed her the property line coordinates and asked if there had been any recent changes or requests filed by third parties, she frowned, clicked a few times, and then went completely still. "There was a submission," she said slowly. "A land use adjustment request, dated 2 weeks ago, from Forest Pines HOA, designation Shared Use Forestry Corridor." I nearly choked. "A what?" "They filed a claim stating the rear section of your parcel was unoccupied, underutilized, and, their words, available for community ecological use." "Let me guess," I said, leaning forward. "They filed it without a notarized owner. Signature," Linda scrolled. "They included a signature, digitally scanned. Mind showing it to me?" She spun the monitor. There it was, my name, misspelled, sloppy. Ink bleed at the edge, like someone photocopied a printed signature and dropped it into a form from a fax machine in 1998. "That's a forgery," I said. Linda pursed her lips. "It's not the first time I've seen something like this from HOA filings. Usually it's minor, fence line extensions, that sort of thing." "This is 8 goddamn acres," I snapped. "And they're stealing physical assets off it." "I'd recommend filing a formal objection and request a fraud investigation," she said, sliding a clipboard over like this was a sandwich order. I filled it out right there, adding copies of everything I had. Photos, documents, GPS logs, recordings. Linda promised to forward it to the county registrar and the zoning commission. As I stepped outside into the cold wind, my phone buzzed. Unknown number again. This time, I answered it with the speaker already on. "You're overreacting," came Kevin's voice, smug, smooth, like a man still drunk on imaginary authority. "It's just wood, Mike. You're making this bigger than it needs to be." I didn't say a word. He kept talking. "I'm telling the community you donated it. It'll look better that way. Don't make this about ego." I let that hang in the air. Then I calmly replied, "The only thing I'm donating is a criminal complaint." Click. I stood in the parking lot staring out at the road. I knew then this wasn't going to end with a slap on the wrist or a sorry note taped to my mailbox. Kevin wasn't just trying to help his lazy son find a shortcut to Firewood. He was trying to rewrite where my land ended and his power began. And I was about to make damn sure he regretted ever dialing my number. The next morning, my phone buzzed nonstop. Not from Kevin, I'd blocked his number, but from numbers I didn't recognize. Unknown callers, unfamiliar area codes. One even showed as a news station. At first, I ignored them. I had more important priorities, printing out every shred of documentation proving my land was mine. 8 acres of quiet, good timber, clean air, and privacy. And suddenly some HOA clown had decided that my land was a community resource. Yeah, over my dead, freshly chainsawed body. I was sorting through the files in my workshop when I heard tires crunching on my driveway again. I checked my perimeter cameras. This time, it wasn't a van full of thieves. It was a Prius with a bright green sticker on the side. Western Cascades Environmental Network. 2 people stepped out. Clipboards, matching Patagonia vests, big eco smiles. Oh, hell no. I walked out and met them at the gate. "Good morning," the woman chirped. "We're with the Community Green Initiative. And we want to say thank you," the man added, clasping his hands reverently, "for your generous contribution to the Firewood Aid Program." I stared. "The what?" She held up a laminated sheet with a printed slogan, "Green Fuel 2025, Firewood for Families," sponsored by Forest Pines Homeowners Association. Below the slogan was a photo of, I swear to God, my cedar pile taken from a drone angle I recognized from my own camera logs. "Your HOA told us you volunteered your firewood to help low-income residents heat their homes sustainably during the winter." My eye twitched. Not metaphorically, physically. "I didn't volunteer a damn thing. That's my firewood." They exchanged polite, tight smiles, the kind social workers reserve for toddlers throwing tantrums. "Well, that's not what your community representative said," the woman said, still too cheerful. "He told us you believe resources should be shared." "My community representative is a power-drunk idiot who thinks the world's his Costco," I snapped. The man cleared his throat, tapping the corner of his clipboard. "We just need your signature to confirm the donation formally for the grant paperwork." He flipped the sheet around. And there it was. My forged signature. Exactly the same as the digital one Linda had shown me at the county office. Except now, it wasn't just scanned into a form. It was printed on glossy brochures, hundreds of them. My stomach flipped. Kevin wasn't just lying. He was mass-producing the lie, turning it into marketing. I breathed in through my nose. Slow, controlled. The eco-duo watched me with the expectant patience of wildlife volunteers waiting for a raccoon to pick the healthier snack. I smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. "Tell Kevin Holt," I said slowly, "that the only donation happening is my attorney delivering paperwork straight into his colon." They blinked, took a tiny step back. We'll just mark this as a no comment." The man whispered, and they scurried back to the Prius like frightened meerkats. The second they pulled away, my phone rang again. Local news station. Great. I answered on speaker. "Hi, Mr. Grayson. We're doing a story on your inspiring firewood donation." Click. I shut the phone off entirely and marched straight back into the house. My hands were shaking, not from fear, but from the kind of cold, righteous fury that makes a man build fences 12 feet tall and lined with barbed wire. Before I could even grab my laptop, the doorbell rang. Not again. A college-aged guy stood there wearing flannel and holding a reusable coffee mug. "Hey, is this where you're giving away cedar firewood?" The post said first come, first served. My jaw clenched so hard I could hear my teeth grind. "What post?" He pulled out his phone, showed me a Craigslist listing. Free cedar, hundreds of logs, donation by owner, gate open. Come get some before it's gone. Mike G. from Forest Pines Community. My full address was printed right there. Kevin had gone nuclear. "Oh, and," the guy added helpfully, "listing says you're cool if we drive right in. Says the owner doesn't mind." Right then, I felt the world tilt. In my mind, I saw the chain, the broken shed, the angle grinder, and now this bastard was inviting strangers to swarm my land. I didn't yell, didn't rant, didn't lecture. I just pointed up at the security camera blinking above my porch. "If you step foot past that gate," I said quietly, "you will be trespassing on private property. I will give your license plate to the sheriff." He recoiled. "Dude, no problem. I'll just go." He ran back to his Subaru like a thief fleeing a crime scene. I didn't waste a second. I screen-recorded the Craigslist listing, emailed screenshots to my attorney, and forwarded the post link to Deputy Caldwell with a subject line that simply said, HOA escalation, active harassment. Within 5 minutes, Caldwell replied, "Document everything. We're moving this to criminal harassment and targeted interference." I leaned back in my chair. This wasn't just trespassing anymore. Kevin was waging a propaganda war. He wanted to rewrite reality, paint me as some stubborn holdout against community good. Well, if he wanted to drag this into a battlefield of paperwork and signatures, he had no idea who he was dealing with. By the time noon rolled around, I'd had 4 more cars show up asking about the free firewood. One woman tried to climb the fence when I didn't answer the intercom. Another guy actually argued with me through the camera speaker, said if I didn't want people coming, I shouldn't have posted the ad. When I told him to get off my land before I fed his bumper to my tractor, he flipped me off and peeled out, kicking gravel all over the road. It was official now. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a campaign. I gathered every video clip from the last 2 hours, dumped them into a new folder, and titled it Holt Harassment Campaign. I included the fake Craigslist post, the drone snapshots I'd pulled from my logs, the same ones used in that glossy pamphlet, and time-stamped clips of strangers rolling onto my property. That folder went straight to my lawyer, Kate. Kate was the type of woman who could turn a verbal warning into a legal firestorm. She'd helped me buy the land when I first left Colorado. Sharp, methodical, and allergic to bullshit. When I called her, I didn't even need to explain much. I've got footage, names, license plates, forged documents, and probable cause for theft and harassment, I said. I want this guy's life gift-wrapped in subpoenas. Her tone didn't waver. We'll start civil, trespassing, and property theft. Then we go criminal, forgery, fraud, and impersonation of owner intent. And what about the Craigslist post? That's cyber harassment. If we prove intent, it becomes targeted interference with property and personal livelihood. You want a restraining order while we're at it? Hell yes. Kate told me she'd file the first 3 civil suits within 48 hours. 1 for theft of property, 1 for unauthorized use of private land, and 1 for public misrepresentation of ownership. But before we went full thermonuclear, she had a suggestion. We need to find out how he got that bogus property map cleared. If it's as fake as you say, someone inside the county helped push it through. That's a felony. She put me in touch with a guy named Don Meacham, a retired federal surveyor turned private consultant. Don had a voice like an old pickup and a memory full of topographical sins. When I showed him the revised HOA map Forest Pines submitted, the one claiming the back of my property was now some kind of shared ecozone, he just stared at it for a few seconds and snorted. They didn't even bother to change the parcel registration numbers. This is just a CAD layer overlay with fake borders. Can you prove that in court? Hell, I can sing it in court. Don agreed to write an expert declaration and be available as a witness. Meanwhile, Kate had already filed for an emergency injunction to prevent Forest Pines HOA from taking any further action on what they claimed was community property. But Kevin wasn't done playing God. That evening, I got a call from the sheriff's office. They'd raided the Forest Pines HOA office. Apparently, Deputy Caldwell and his team had acted on the Craigslist post. Once they traced the IP, it came straight from Forest Pines' internal network. That gave them probable cause to request a warrant for digital records. And what they found? Gold. A folder titled Alternative Boundaries. Emails between Kevin and a junior clerk in the zoning department. One message actually said, Grayson won't know the difference. Most folks don't read coordinates. Just get the line moved in the system, and we'll handle the rest on the ground. Another one, this time to his son. Clear the shed. He's isolated. Nobody will care. There were drafts of multiple grant applications tied to firewood redistribution, along with fake homeowner signatures, not just mine either. Kate confirmed at least 3 other property owners had their names used without consent. It was bigger than just me. Kevin had built an entire narrative, a charitable, community-forward, eco-sustainable fantasy, funded by theft and fraud. And now the system was cracking. The clerk involved, suspended, pending investigation. Kevin, served with notice of all 3 suits, plus a police request for formal questioning. His son? Officially listed as a suspect in unlawful entry and possession of stolen property. That night, as I sat in my workshop sharpening my old logging axe, not because I planned to use it, just because it calmed me down, I thought about how fast good men turn arrogant when they think no one's watching, and how satisfying it is to show them you've been watching all along. The week started quiet. Too quiet. After the police raid, the fake Firewood campaign dried up fast. No more reporters, no more Prius patrols. The stream of strangers looking for free logs stopped cold, like someone yanked the ad mid-refresh. Kevin had gone radio silent, which, of course, only made me more suspicious. Kate was filing motions left and right, injunctions, civil liability notices. One of the homeowners Kevin had forged also stepped forward, and by Thursday, a local reporter ran a segment titled HOA Overreach or Organized Fraud, featuring a stock image of my fence. Good press for me. Bad week for Forest Pines. but I knew Kevin wasn't the type to surrender, not after how deep he'd sunk. Men like him don't back down. They double down. And, sure enough, Friday morning, I got a call from Don, the surveyor. "You're going to love this one," he said. "Your notarized consent form? The one the HOA used for that eco-grant and land overlay? What about it? It's a joke. No matching logbook. Stamps expired. And get this, the notary? She's listed as retired. Moved to Arizona 5 years ago." Of course she did. So we set a trap. Don knew a guy, another surveyor, who sometimes played decoy for fraud cases. We posed as a private landowner interested in subdividing the lot behind mine, supposedly for a community co-op space. The idea: reuse the same shady notary for our fake request and record the process. The appointment was set for Sunday morning at a diner off Highway 97. I showed up early and wired the booth with a GoPro disguised as a portable charger. The notary arrived, late 40s, twitchy eyes, blazer, a size too small. She introduced herself as Marcia and immediately pulled out a tablet. No ID check, no questions. Just asked for a name and whether I wanted the signature to look official or friendly. We handed her the same bogus form Kevin had used, only now with a different property owner's name. She scrolled, tapped, stamped, and handed it back in less than 2 minutes. Gotcha. The footage was solid. Clear voice, on-screen timestamp, and visible forgery. Kate was almost giddy. We filed it under criminal notarization fraud with intent to deceive. Between this and the zoning clerk's emails, the case against Kevin was now an ugly, bloated toad of criminal exposure. But the best was yet to come. Late Sunday night, my motion lights flared to life. My phone buzzed with a perimeter alert. Zone 4, woodshed. I switched to the live feed. Someone was on my property. Again. Through the grainy night vision, I saw a figure crouched low near the rear edge of the shed. Hoodie, gloves, backpack slung over one shoulder. At first, I thought maybe it was another idiot looking to score firewood, until the guy pulled out a red gas can and a lighter. "Oh, hell no," I hissed, already grabbing my boots and shotgun. I didn't even get down the porch steps before the perimeter alarm kicked in. Full siren this time. Floodlights snapped on and the bastard froze like a deer in a minefield. The camera zoom caught his face as he looked straight at the lens. Chad. Kevin's dumbass son. He bolted, but he was too slow. Sheriff's deputies were already circling the area after reports of suspicious activity at other properties nearby. They intercepted him down the trail exit behind the trees, flashlight beams cutting through the fog like prison spotlights. They tackled him behind the fence. I got there just in time to see him cuffed and shoved into the back of a cruiser. The gas can was still full. He hadn't started the fire, didn't stop him from trying. Under questioning, he cracked fast, claimed it wasn't his idea. That Dad said it was the only way to make it go away, that if the woodpile burned, there'd be no evidence left to argue about. He admitted the whole thing, not just the arson attempt, but the stolen wood, the forged map, the Craigslist ad, and the drone photos taken from the HOA maintenance guy's DJI Mavic. The kid sang like a damn canary. Kate called me first thing Monday morning. "We're adding attempted arson and conspiracy to destroy evidence." I just nodded, sipping my coffee in front of my new outdoor camera monitor. "Good," I said. "Now we're getting somewhere." Because now it wasn't just fraud or harassment. This had escalated to felony territory, and if Kevin thought he could burn his way out of this mess, well, he should have remembered what kind of man I used to be, because I've seen fires up close, and I know exactly how to start them, and how to make sure they only burn the guilty. The arrest made the front page of the Evergreen Gazette by Tuesday morning. HOA Vice President's son caught in attempted arson. Property dispute turns criminal. They used a photo of Chad being hauled into the cruiser, his hoodie bunched up around his neck, looking like a frat boy caught stealing test answers. I clipped the article, printed 2 copies, one for my legal folder and one for the outhouse. Prioritized accordingly, but I knew Kevin wouldn't go down without swinging. The night after the arrest, the wind changed. You could feel it, something in the air like a storm just off the ridge. Silent, dangerous. Kate was working overtime. With the new confession, she filed an amended complaint. Attempted arson, conspiracy to destroy evidence, reckless endangerment, and at this point, felony criminal harassment. The local DA took an interest, then the county. Meanwhile, Forest Pines HOA tried to go radio silent. Their website vanished. Emails bounced. Their Facebook page was under review. Cowards never stand tall when the sirens come. But Kevin, still quiet, too quiet. Then came the flyer. It showed up taped to my gate Tuesday afternoon. Bright yellow paper, hand-drawn border, printed in Comic Sans like it was a damn bake sale notice. I pulled it off and read it 3 times before I actually believed what I was seeing. Community notice. Due to ongoing confusion and hostility from Mr. Grayson, we have decided to peacefully withdraw our Firewood aid project. We regret the drama this individual has caused and wish him healing. We remind residents that our mission is unity, not conflict. Sincerely, Forest Pines HOA, Acting Chair, Kevin Holt. I laughed so hard I nearly slipped off the porch. Hostility. This guy just tried to light my shed on fire. And yet, here he was, still playing the gracious community martyr like he was the one being wronged. I took the flyer, scanned it, logged it in my growing evidence vault, now sitting at over 300 individual files, and flagged it for Kate. She called me an hour later, voice tight. "We just got the county zoning report. You're gonna love this." Oh yeah, they ran a full audit of the Forest Pines HOA's land usage filings going back 5 years. Turns out Kevin's been submitting minor variances and zone requests for years, all under false pretenses. How many? Over a dozen. One of them reclassified part of a public hiking trail as HOA exclusive use land. Another claimed a wetland buffer was dormant green space for development. And one, she paused, lists your land as a firewood resource for low-income outreach. So this was never about my property specifically. Nope. You were just the unlucky one who noticed. The DA's office got involved immediately. Kevin was served with a formal subpoena for all HOA activity records, communications, and grant applications. I heard he tried to dodge the process server by hiding in his garage. Classy. But then came the part I didn't expect. Kevin's wife showed up at my property. I was splitting wood, working on the last of what hadn't been touched, when I heard gravel crunching under tires. A white Audi pulled up, and out stepped a woman in her 50s, expensive sunglasses, sweater tied around her shoulders like she was lost on her way to a vineyard. "Mr. Grayson," she called out, walking up to the gate like this was a tea party. "May I have a word?" I set the axe down. "Depends. Are you also here to set my shed on fire?" Her jaw twitched. "I'm not here to fight. I just want to ask, can you stop this? Please." "Stop what?" "The lawsuits, the press, all of it. My husband made a mistake." I stared at her, deadpan. "Which part? Forging documents, stealing from my land, inviting strangers onto my property, or instructing your son to commit felony arson?" She flinched but didn't back away. "I know how it looks. You don't." She took off her sunglasses then, and I'll admit there was something human in her eyes. Fear, embarrassment, maybe even shame. We didn't think anyone would dig this deep. Kevin, he's always been good at pushing paper, at getting people to go along. This wasn't supposed to blow up. "Well," I said, stepping toward the gate, "maybe your husband should have stuck to board meetings and lawn height disputes instead of screwing with someone who builds his own fences and still owns a chainsaw." She didn't argue, just turned, got back in her car, and drove away. A ghost of a woman who realized too late the man she married was less of a leader and more of a fraud with a clipboard. That night, I checked the news again. This time, it wasn't just a local headline. Regional Environmental Watchdog Group files ethics complaint over fraudulent grant abuse. State Zoning Board opens investigation into Forest Pines HOA practices. Private landowner fights back against property manipulation. My shed, my damn rules. I shut the laptop and poured myself a whiskey. The fire never happened, but Kevin had still lit the match. Too bad for him, I was the one with the water and a folder full of receipts. By the time the court date hit, I had enough documentation to bury a mid-sized corporation. Kate came over the night before with 2 banker's boxes full of labeled files, exhibit folders, and a tabbed binder thick enough to kill a raccoon if dropped from shoulder height. She handed me a stiff drink and sat down at my kitchen table. "Tomorrow's the show," she said. "You ready?" "I've been ready since that asshole told me my land was underutilized." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. She knew this was serious now, beyond property rights, beyond HOA drama. This was a fraud case with felony charges stacked like kindling, and Kevin had practically doused himself in kerosene. The next morning, I put on my best flannel, boots polished, beard trimmed, and walked into the Chelan County Courthouse like it was opening night, and I had front row seats to a public execution. Kevin was already there, sitting with his lawyer, some desperate white-collar suit, sweating through his discount tie. Kevin looked smaller than I remembered, grayer, like the weight of his own schemes had started to crush the man inside. Too late now. The prosecution started with the basic facts, the forged documents, the attempted reclassification of my land, the Craigslist ad, the fake Firewood campaign. Then came the kicker, the trail cam footage, the map overlays, and Don's expert analysis showing the faked boundary lines were intentionally drafted to mislead both county officials and the public. Then the DA dropped the hammer, an internal email between Kevin and the zoning clerk, in which Kevin literally wrote, "If we spin it like an eco project, nobody's going to ask questions." We slapped Grayson's name on it. He won't even notice. The clerk had already flipped. She testified under oath that Kevin pressured her to submit zoning modifications without proper verification and offered to put in a good word with the HOA board if she helped make it happen. Then came the notary trap. Full video playback of our diner sting, time-stamped, voice clear as day. The jury watched as the notary, now disbarred and absent from the courtroom, rubber-stamped a fake land use form without verifying my identity. You could feel the shift in the air. The judge leaned forward. Even Kevin's lawyer looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. But the moment that truly sealed it, the point where even the bailiff's eyebrows lifted, was the arson attempt. Chad, in handcuffs and court-ordered slacks, was brought to the stand. He looked like a wet rag pretending to be a man. Under oath, with half the county staring him down, he cracked wide open, said it all. Yes, he tried to burn the woodpile. Yes, his dad told him to eliminate the problems. Yes, they forged everything. No, it wasn't for the community. It was to cover up theft. The courtroom went still. The judge ordered a recess. Kevin didn't say a word, just stared straight ahead, face drained, probably running through a dozen exit strategies and realizing none of them mattered anymore. That afternoon, sentencing began. The judge was surgical. No theatrics. Just cold, precise justice. Kevin Holt, convicted of fraud, conspiracy to commit property theft, falsification of public records, harassment, and solicitation of arson, was sentenced to 7 years in state prison with eligibility for parole in 5. His son, 2 years probation, a $25,000 fine, and mandatory psychiatric evaluation. The judge called him a willing puppet in a dangerous game, which was more poetic than I expected. The former notary lost her license permanently and was slapped with a civil penalty. And the Forest Pines HOA dissolved by court order, its assets frozen, its board stripped of authority. All future community decisions now under county oversight until further notice. Kate shook my hand outside the courthouse. "You just made HOA history." "I just wanted to keep my firewood," she smirked. "You just became the reason 27 other HOAs are quietly reviewing their bylaws this week." I didn't say anything, just looked out over the courthouse lawn, where reporters were already interviewing angry HOA residents from neighboring communities, people wondering if their boards had pulled similar stunts. One guy said, "Grayson just proved you can fight back." I climbed into my truck and drove home, past the cleared property lines, past the empty lot where Kevin used to brag about building a guest house with a view, past the gate I'd rebuilt with fresh steel and new hinges. And when I stepped out, boots crunching the gravel in my driveway, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Stillness. And the smell of cedar. It took me 2 weeks to believe it was over. No more knocks on the gate. No more vans. No HOA flyers or fake drone shots floating around pretending I'd donated anything. Just me, my land, the trees, and the sound of wind rolling off the ridge like it remembered who really owned the place. After the trial, I spent a few days cleaning up, hauled what was left of my cedar into a new reinforced shed, doubled the camera coverage around the rear perimeter, installed a pressure sensor on the east fence, just in case any future eco-heroes got ideas. Then I got to work on the new gate sign. I carved it myself out of a thick, weather-treated slab of Douglas fir. Took my time with the lettering, burned it in with a branding iron I hadn't used since Colorado, hung it right where the old welcome sign used to be, nailed into a post so thick it could stop a Ford F-150. Private property. Trespassers will meet my axe before they meet the sheriff. It wasn't just a warning, it was closure. A week after the sign went up, a reporter from a regional news station asked to visit for a victory interview. I told her I wasn't interested in sound bites or sob stories. I didn't need to be a local legend, but she came anyway. I met her at the fence. She kept her distance. Smart girl. "You've become something of a folk hero," she said. "People are calling it the Firewood heist that burned the HOA down." I shook my head. I didn't burn anything. I just lit the truth. She laughed, but I didn't smile. She asked me what I planned to do next. Same as always, I said. Stack wood, stay quiet, stay dangerous. Before she left, she asked if she could take a picture of the gate. I said sure, as long as the sign stayed in frame. She published the piece that night. It wasn't flashy, just facts. The fraud, the trial, the fake eco campaign, the arson attempt, the downfall. The photo ran with a caption. "Sometimes the only thing between you and a lie is a good fence and a man willing to defend it." Months passed. The snow came early that year. I kept to myself. Rebuilt the porch rail, finally repaired the solar wiring that raccoon tore through last spring. Even had time to finish the cedar bench I'd started before the madness began. But word kept spreading. Emails from other landowners started trickling in. People asking for advice. Stories about their own HOA horror tales. One guy from Idaho said he printed my gate sign and hung a copy on his barn. One letter stood out. Handwritten. No return address. They tried the same thing with my back pasture. Thanks for showing how to swing back. A neighbor. That one I framed. As for Forest Pines, the HOA is gone. Kevin's house is listed on foreclosure auction sites. Rumor has it, his wife moved in with her sister downstate. Chad's been working off his probation clearing brush for a local trail crew. Someone sent me a picture of him with a chainsaw and court-issued vest. Poetic. The county held a town hall last month about restructuring community oversight in unincorporated zones. They asked if I wanted to serve on the new advisory board. I said I'd only consider it if they held meetings in my workshop and paid in firewood. They laughed. I wasn't joking. The forest feels taller now. Not because it grew, but because the noise is gone. The intrusion, the arrogance, the assumption that because a man lives quiet, he must be weak. That his land is open, his time expendable, his rights negotiable. I still check the perimeter every night. Not out of fear, out of habit. A good fence isn't enough. You have to walk it, know it, defend it. Especially when the people on the other side believe everything they see belongs to them. But now, when I finish that walk and head back to the house, it feels lighter, like something rotten was cut out of the woods. And the only thing left is the sound of cedar splitting clean.